Okay, I am so happy that on this month's Tirtha Women at the Top conversation is my founding member, Amy Wilkins, who you're going to meet in a moment. And Amy, I mean, just read the bio within the link. There's too much here with Amy's career, but she is not just a champion in media, in sales, in making a difference. She's a real champion for women and a champion for leadership for women. And we're going to get into that on this podcast. And Amy, you and I always say this when we talk. I've known you for years because we have known you for years.
Yeah.
And you're just one of my special people. You're just always there as we kind of pivot back together when it's time to create something again. And here you are. I'm so proud of you, launching your own really expression in the world. I'm not even going to call it a business. It can be a business, but this whole new expression. And I really wanted the women to learn more about you, learn why this is so important. And then as you're listening in, you know, you've got two seasoned leaders here who are going to share really what we've dealt with and why we do what we do. So hang tight. So me, share a little bit about yourself and your current mission.
Yeah. So I spent 35 years in media sales, rising up the ranks, and discovered that the thing that I love and loved most was always leading teams and seeing people rise. And even seeing them leave me, like that was like a great thing to give someone their wings, right? They got what they got and they were complete and they were ready to go and try something else somewhere else, right? Especially if I didn't have something to offer. So, while I was still in my corporate career, I realized I need to start really diving into this because this is what I care about most. What I care about most is supporting people as they rise. And I've been involved in women's leadership organizations for decades, and was the chair of She Runs It for a few years, was on the board for many years. It's an organization that takes care of the people, women in the media, marketing, digital, ecosystem, and supports them at every stage of their career. And it's those rising leaders that I'm just so passionate about. And I realized that part of it was because when I was rising, I found those times to sometimes be incredibly lonely and isolating. It would be a time when I might think I'm supposed to know it all, right? So I can't let anybody know I don't. Or something doesn't seem quite right here, but should I be the one to point it out? It's that kind of, like mistrusting myself. And so it would be, I'd go in and start doing my thing. And I find that with a lot of the people that I coach, a lot of the women that I coach have done that. And the challenge with that is if you've gone in that far, when you need the network around you, you haven't built it, right? You haven't fostered it. And you can't just call on people just because, oh, now I need you. I mean, it's got to go both ways. And so I'm fortunate that I did learn that early on because I was part of that organization, which is something that I would advise like any woman to join with other women to get that kind of support. Like it's part of the reason why being part of Tirtha is important for me, right? Because I get to be around other women who are also creating that for themselves. But it's such an important thing not to stay. For me, I want to be there for someone who says, you know what? I'm feeling lonely. I feel like I'm trying to do this on my own and I'm not getting where I want to go. I need some help. And so that's where the one-on-one coaching comes from. That's where, I do workshops. I facilitate group coaching. I also have the podcast that I'm launching, right? So it's designed to put that message out that, we don't have to do this alone.
And in your vision, because you have a vision, and just to touch on, Amy and other women are in Tirtha because they're women who are on their divine path. This is so dear to your heart, it's so true to who you are. No one's forcing you to do this, no one's making you do this. You don't actually have to do it. None of us have to do what we're creating. So it is something that is unique to us, that matters to us. And if you look into the business landscape and looked into the shift or the transformation or what you want to see for women in that top tier leadership, where they feel alone, they feel isolated.
Yeah.
We can't ask for help. I'm going to get into that in a bit more with you. I just want to hear your vision. When you kind of just step back and really look at the whole of it, what's the vision that you're really wanting to see get expressed in the world, Amy?
I want all women to know that they have a right to be at that table, and that there is the energy of all women around them to support them as they rise.
So interesting. A couple of months ago, I read the statistic, and I haven't said anything or done anything with it yet, right? And it might not be accurate because it's my memory, so but you'll get the gist of it.
Yeah.
It basically says when a man becomes a CEO, the average tenure of that time is 8 years.
Yeah.
When a woman, who's not as many as the men, but when a woman does get to be a CEO, the average time is 4 years, because when she gets there, she's still proving herself versus leading.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, and it's the same idea that, women often won't even take a job unless they are like 90 to 100 to 120% qualified, which also means it's boring. Right? Like there isn't the opportunity for that to be a huge risk when the majority of women will choose a path like that. Not all women, thankfully, right? But and so much of that comes from this culture where, a man will take a job, he's got to know 60%, and everybody's like, oh, he'll get the other 40. But the same thing is not granted to women, right? The same benefit of that, like, we know you can do this, right? Is not granted to women. And so the reality is she's actually under a different microscope. And it's tuned in really fine, which is the thing that causes women to get focused, sometimes on things that are outside of leading.
Yeah.
Because they are being looked at differently. And it's one of those things that, we thought we were making some progress, because we kind of were for a little bit. And there's so many stats out there that show that in certain industries we were making headway, but it's not moving in the right direction right now.
And why do you think that is?
I think what's happening culturally right now is really dangerous. I think when we're in a situation where people will say things like, well, we're going to get rid of DEI, and suddenly what that means is we shouldn't have put a woman in that role, regardless of merit. It's like, and I look at, I'm gonna use the example of the Pentagon. I mean, we are relieving women leaders who had to earn their way to those stripes, to be 4-star generals, and sort of saying, oh, I'm sorry, we're going to have to relieve you, right? Why? Right? So I do think that's I'm going to say it's alarming to me, right, that we are already disposing of people who are in that, who have achieved that and earned it. And I think it gives others permission to do the same. And so I am concerned, right, that this will give other organizations the thinking that, oh, no, I have permission to, behave the same way, and, go back to cronyism, and where, I'm only hiring people who look just like me.
So good, because I think we've got two things going on. One, we have an environment which is not 100% backing us.
Yeah.
When you look from where you're looking, right? I'm
Yeah.
not saying all, but just if we're
Yeah.
just looking from where you're looking. And then at the same time, we don't have an internal team to support us to move forward. I remember many times and in many leadership roles that I've been in, for some reason, I'm the one that always says the truth. You know what I mean?
I've been there.
I'm
Yeah.
the one that's going to put my hand up. And
Yep.
I've already gone to other people and said, are you going to back me if I say this?
Yeah.
And you go in there and you're ready to say something obvious in the organization or share something that's vulnerable and puts you so at risk.
Absolutely.
And you do it. And the two women who said they would back you, or even the guy, crickets. And you're left there hanging, not only with stepping forward, but a sense of betrayal because no one supports you, because everyone backs down.
Yeah.
In an environment where we are not encouraged to express in this way.
Yeah, and it takes courage to stand up for things that you don't that don't make sense.
Yeah.
And I can think of experiences like that early on in my career, when I remember going in to see this one of the senior guys on the leadership team. There were four of them. They were all in the C-suite, and they were like, it's not a great job when you have four people trying to share a job. And I went in to see this one guy because the CFO was frankly just inappropriate on every level. I mean, I would go to him and say, hey, I've got to let someone go. And he'd go, can I do it? And I'd be like, what? No, that's gross. Like this idea that I can't wait to fire somebody. I was like, well, that's not what this is. This is just, I need to let this person go. They're not getting the job done, but I don't need to be cruel about it. I don't need to be cruel. What's the point? Right. And he did something else that was just out there. And I went to the leadership team and I went to this one of the guys and I said, is it me or is there anybody else here who's a little bit worried about lawsuits?
Yeah.
And this is fascinating. They thought that was a veiled threat from me. It hadn't even occurred to me to sue. I was like, it hadn't occurred to me. And he had done things to me and I had shared it with them, but I hadn't, it wasn't even about me. I was worried about everybody else, right?
Yeah.
Not even about myself. And what they did was they said a week later, 2 days later, they come to me and they go, would it work if you never had to talk to him again? And I thought,
Wow.
what the actual,
Yeah.
because now what that means is there's nobody else who's going to look out for these other people who are being abused by
Yeah.
this. I mean, just he was crazy and evil, like to his core. And I thought, I don't understand how this makes any sense. And I stayed there longer than I should because I was in shock. I was really young and I was in shock that I was in an environment like that. And for a while, I was completely paralyzed to even make a move. Yeah.
No, that is so on point. It's so weird because what you're sharing, if you're watching this, you might think this is a thing of the past. Like, oh yeah, that happened in the 80s. Oh yeah, that
Yeah.
happened in the 90s. Yes, it's 2025. Amy, you're the third woman this week having this conversation with me about their relationship with either the CEO or the owner of the business that is so not appropriate. And they feel paralyzed and stuck in their role because they're not in a conversation with anyone else to actually see what they're in, because you can't think straight when your fear gets kicked up.
Well, and also when you're in what feels like an alternate reality, or you get there and you think, wait a minute, maybe what I was living was alternate reality. Maybe this is what it's really like. And then there's something wrong with me, right?
Yeah.
Like, so you start doubting yourself, and it's it it's terrible. It's terrible.
It literally drives women onto the brink of a mental breakdown.
I got shingles
Oh,
at 35.
oh,
Nobody gets shingles at 35.
yeah.
Shingles is not something, I mean, it's typically something you're going to get when you're older, right?
Right.
And I was in denial that it was even shingles, but I remember I was with my parents. My parents came for a visit, and I had this resource that had all these, health tips in it. And I'm looking at rashes, and I'm skipping the piece on shingles. And my dad goes, read that. And I read it and I go, what? And sure enough, I mean, that I was flat out. I couldn't move.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, I mean, what are you waiting for? Like,
Yeah.
I'm waiting to be sick, right? I'm waiting, and people do make themselves sick. If we wonder where some of these things come from, not just mental health issues, but other things happen because we are holding it all in.
That's so good, because I actually want to touch on this, because I could, see the vision. If you can listen in, there's the beginning of a creation of a vision, right? Sometimes to create, we've got to really see what doesn't work.
Yeah.
And are we okay with that going forward? And it's obvious we're not, right? It's just
Yeah.
not okay. So as a new future can start to emerge for women, not only to feel safe in their environment, be well in their environment, and realize for themselves and be able to have the discernment to get themselves out of something that is not a fit for their leadership.
That's right.
Like, we got to own that power.
And it's not even that it's not a fit. They don't deserve us.
Right.
Like, we got to even shift it
Just that.
beyond, oh, this
Yeah.
just isn't a fit, because then it means, well, I don't fit, right? Because
Yeah.
that's usually where we go first, versus you don't actually deserve the gifts I'm bringing you.
So good. Now Molino, who I was my first woman on this series, who did the Bring Your Daughter to Work campaign back in the 80s, millions
Yeah. Yeah.
of kids, right? And even now, to this day, I asked her, she goes, it hasn't changed. She goes, until women get this is an inside job, it will not shift.
Yeah.
It's not the environment, it's not men, it's the belief in ourselves, like you just said, in the gifts that we bring.
Yeah.
And honoring and valuing who we are as women. So I think part of that vision, Amy, is for women to really own who they are and their power. That's the vision here.
Yeah. Well, I get that. And if I
Yeah,
could just, because I
go
think
for
there
it.
still is a slight nuance, right?
Yeah,
Um, because you can still own it
right.
and be out, right?
Yeah,
And so it takes more than owning it, right? It takes um, being willing to accept what happens when you do,
yeah.
right? Because I did that at that company. They brought in an industrial psychologist, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to spill my guts. And I did. I said all the things, every single thing. And when I was done, they said, you have just described a morally bankrupt organization.
Wow.
And you need to ask yourself why you're still here. And I said, I do. I ask myself that every day. And I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted. And then they brought in a guy to try to convince me to quit because I had equity that I would lose if I quit.
Oh,
And this woman in the organization, love her to this day, she said, come with me. She brought me to her lawyer, and he looked at my contract and he said, don't you dare walk out that door. You make them do it. You make them do it. And sure enough, because I told the guy who they sent to me, who kind of felt bad for me, his daughter went to the same college as me. So I think he was having a little trouble with this conversation, saying, oh, it's not good if if you have if you have to say that you've been fired. And I'm like, nobody's going to care. if I get fired from this place. And once I said that, they knew they were going to have to let me go. But it took something.
Yeah, it did.
It took something. And, you know, and then I chose a job after that that was a job I could do with my eyes closed. And it was okay because it was a healing place. And I worked with amazing people, and I was in a different type. It was still in the same industry, but doing something slightly different. So I was learning something new. And I was like, you know what? Do what you got to do when you've had an experience like that.
And how long were you in that healing space for yourself?
So I did get a job pretty quickly. And part of the reason is because the woman who the headhunter who got me into the job in the first place came out of retirement and said, I'm going to place you. She felt bad. And so she found me this opportunity. And when I met with the folks there, I was like, I love this. Like I loved it. I loved the brand. And what I really loved is it wasn't actually in the same, I wasn't going to see all the same people. So they weren't going to ask me about my last job because they didn't
Yes.
even know it. And so I didn't want to be talking about it. And I knew that if I was in sort of a more mainstream in the same kind of business, people would talk about it all the time. And I didn't want to. I was like, you know what? If I'm going to talk about this, I'm talking about it with my husband. I'm going to talk about it with, a coach. I'm going to talk about it with my friends and close confidants, my network, but I'm not going to talk about it at work. And it was beautiful not to have to. So I started like literally 2 months later, and it was a good thing for me. It was a great place.
I feel so recreated on many ways right now. I feel like I'm coming out of hiding, out of
Yeah.
Sarasota for
Yeah.
the last 3 years. You just said everything. I'm not going to go through that. That's
Yeah.
a separate conversation.
Yeah.
But Amy, there's something I want to touch on because
Yeah.
I think there's so many walls to our own. There's so many barriers that we have to deal with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
To one, we might need help.
Yeah.
Two, find the voice to ask for it.
Yeah.
And three, learn, men are way ahead of us on this, learn the real power of investing money in our own development.
Oh, yeah, you are speaking my language. I mean, when I hired my first coach,
Yeah.
I paid for it myself. I went to the company and I asked them, and it wasn't that company. I went to this company and asked HR. I said, do you ever, support leaders through coaching? And they said, only when they're a problem. And I thought, oh,
Wow.
okay. And I don't know if that was really true.
Right.
I don't know if it was just that they were deciding they weren't going to invest in me, right? Whatever it was, I did it anyway, and I paid for it myself. And it was a significant hardship at the time because of what was happening financially in the markets and what was happening in our industry. We were in a downturn, and I was like, I still have to do this because I need to interrupt this pattern. Like I can't, some people are in that I'm suffering and I guess this is how it's supposed to be. I don't believe that. Suffering is optional. I don't want to do it. I don't want anybody around me to do it. And I could feel myself suffering. And I'm like, I can choose something else. And if I stay, it has to be because I'm choosing to stay and that I'm actually going to learn something. What do I get to learn? Like, what do I get to learn about myself? And I'm worth it. I'm worth that investment. And it's not that much when you look at it. Stop buying extra pairs of shoes. I mean, it's like I mean, literally, it wasn't impossible to figure out. And it's also not forever.
It's so good. When I literally stopped my last role, my corporate role, and I stopped for the first time, I wasn't burnt out. My energy was so depleted. I couldn't even get myself in any space. It was the first time I stopped working since I was 17. I've always had a job. I've always had a career. I don't have children. So my career is my expression. My love for people is where my love as a woman gets to be expressed. Right? That's to me why everything about me is about what we're creating. And like you, Amy, the first 2 years, I didn't have 2 pennies to rub together outside of like my what I've kind of put together. But in terms of, I wasn't making any money. I didn't have the energy to even want to do it. I didn't want to work for anyone else. And if you're watching this, I had a couple of clients who are like, Joe, just work with me. And they paid for my bills at that time. And I spent every penny I had on coaching, healing. Basically that was it. But I had a team of like 5 people working with me to get me back to this space now for me to even begin to lead and create. But it took an army to get me together.
And I wonder too, I wonder if it wasn't really taking you back somewhere.
No, it wasn't.
Very
good catch.
Right?
Good catch. Yeah.
It's like, honestly, even with all the painful times that I've had, I've had a lot of amazing times too. I don't want to redo them.
No.
And I don't want to go back to anything. I want to birth something new from every experience.
That's why I love you, Amy. Same. Thank you for correcting that, because it is, everything was perfect. Everything was in divine order to the point of now realizing that what needed to get healed, what needed to get expressed, what now is there to create is all part of what you and I are learning that all women need.
Yes.
And men.
Yes. Men need it too. And, and listen, I worked with some amazing men.
Yeah, me too.
I am fortunate that I did. Now, I also worked with some that were not, but I got to tell you, I will always remember their contribution to my growth, and that they stood for me.
Yeah. My husband being my biggest champion.
Yeah.
My husband, he's the one that's like, all right, lady.
I know
who you are.
Keep going. Yeah. I got you. Yeah.
Yeah. So what would be, there's women listening in who, now, if you're listening in, and I'm just going to create a couple of scenarios, right? And you're in a leadership role where you're kind of in that middle space, you've just got a new leadership role, you don't know what the hell you're doing, or you're still doing what you used to do, it's kind of messy in that new space, then you've got to reach out to Amy. This is her specialty. This is what she is up to, okay? So you've got like the perfect women for you to speak to. And after knowing her for so many years, I can't endorse or recommend Amy highly enough for you to speak to. And if you are a woman like us and you have a vision, and you are like, hey, what's up to over there? I've got a vision. And it could be transforming motherhood. It could be anything, shifting anything, right? And you want to be around women having these kind of conversations and this community, giving each other support, then check out Tirtha. I'll put it in the link. And it's so funny, Amy, you just reminded me about women's investment, right? Do you know that 1 cup of coffee from our local coffee store, $7.60 for 1 coffee with tip, you took $10 for 1 coffee.
Right.
I'm like, when did coffee get so expensive? But that is literally.
And our willingness to pay for it.
Exactly, but not pay for our own development.
That's right.
And that is what we need to wake us up a little bit. It was shoes, it is coffee. Suddenly we find the money to go on the 4-day break that we need versus transforming our life that we actually don't need to go on a 4-day break from.
Well, and often that 4-day break isn't a break.
Yes.
right? Because if we're carrying all that stuff with us, we didn't really break. We were
Yes.
working through it, you know, available 24/7.
So what we're pointing to is, and this is really for me, my vision to align with your vision.
Yeah.
I want the transformation of women to get the value of who they are.
Yeah.
And when you and I truly get the value to ourselves, I'm not even talking about with anyone else. You just honor the greatness and the gift and the way that you do you. And when women's expression of leadership and freedom, like there's a sense of freedom around us, so we can start to see that.
Yeah.
I think a lot will happen in the world when we start to ignite that. And I really see you as one of the women doing that, Amy. So thank you for being on
Ditto.
with us.
Absolutely.
Any last thoughts before we say thank you very much?
No, I would just say, just remember, you don't have to do this alone.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it alone.
And just remember, we've all got history, scars, badges, you name it. There's nothing we cannot support you in.
That's
Nothing.
correct. Yeah. My favorite line I will leave you with
Right.
is, be the most worthwhile project you ever work on.
Awesome. On that note, this is complete. Thank you so much, Amy.
Oh, thank you.
Great.